in New Zealand and Australia, schools have really embraced wellbeing.
Yeah, that's right. They have, haven't they? I wonder why. Like, what do you think's influenced that?
I can think of some countries, like if I think about the UK and America, there were different factors there that have worked against well-being. And we've had the absence of some of education in the UK has been under austerity measures for more than 10 years. And in the US, they're allowed talk social and emotional intelligence, but the whole concept of whole school well-being and well-being the way we know it with models like Te Whare Tape Whā is not on the agenda.
It's probably also maybe linked to our curriculum being so malleable, I guess, and so teachers that have an interest in this, and many did and do, have brought that in kind of naturally, knowing that it fits inside of...
Yeah, and, there's been a push towards, the curriculum has encouraged, thinking about children as lifelong learners, the whole child. And then coming the other way, there's also been an avoid motivation in that we've been working with Kaiako, where the leadership have said, we need to do something for our kids. Problems are increasing. We've got more anxiety. We've got children coming from really troubled backgrounds, and we need to do something to support them. I think the first group that I worked with back in 2009, the South Dunedin cluster, their motivation was really clear. They said, our children cannot learn until they're well. It's easy to make individuals responsible for their well-being, but the truth is, I think of us as all swimming in a pool. And if the pool is really nasty and the water's toxic, it's hard for any person in it to be well. And so some of the schools that have done the deepest, greatest work on well-being might not even be explicitly teaching it, but they have looked at how do we relate to our community, to our parent community? How do we set up a timetable that doesn't cripple teachers? How do we, how do we have systems of assessment that are supportive of well-being for both the teachers and the students? So it's all that big picture of being in a community and running a community in a way that is supportive of well-being.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because my background is in psychology, and I was thinking when I was driving here this morning, when the term well-being became so readily used, because I think only 10 years ago, less than 10 years ago, we were talking about development, child development, weren't we? And child and behaviour. We weren't talking about well-being.
Yeah, it's been interesting how various different labels emerge and kind of coalesce. One of the other changes that I think we've seen in the last few years is we were talking about, there was wellness.
Oh, wellness.
Fruit bowls and...
We wanted a wee bit of wellness.
Fruit bowls and yoga and job done. And then we were into
videos. I'm sure there was a video.
whole well-being of the person. But then we were still slicing up restorative practice, cultural responsiveness. And I remember inviting Matua Angus McFarlane to the WENS conference back in 2018 or 17, and saying these things belong together. Who we are, our cultural identity, our cultural belonging, all of that is part of well-being. And we can't talk about one without the other. And this is where the label piece gets interesting. Like, if a school is saying, oh, look, we're really busy and I think we've done well-being, next year we need to do restorative practice. And it's like, anyone in those areas will say, you don't do these things, you've got to be them. And I have ended up drawing lots of Venn diagrams for people recently going, listen, if you want to move on and really focus on trauma-informed practice or cultural responsiveness or restorative practice, you're still doing well-being. All of those, that space is all about how do we develop some kind of human-centric approach that respects and values people.
And Yeah, and how do we have everybody in here with us belong?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's at the heart of it,
Yeah.
isn't it? And we've been talking a lot lately. Lucy will be like, she says to me, Denise, you've been banging on about collective resilience since the start of the pandemic. Yeah, we have.
Banging on about it, still banging.
Yeah, still banging on about it till people listen. And part of the reason is, a lot of organisations that weren't necessarily interested in well-being suddenly got very interested once COVID hit. It's kind of like the world got the Canterbury earthquakes lesson. When the earthquakes happened in Canterbury, everybody here realised that well-being is important. When something is threatened or taken away, we go like, that's really important, and it enables so much. We need to protect it and look after it.
Yeah.
And I think
actually that was when we changed our language, wasn't it?
Yes.
From development and learning,
well-being,
development and behaviour to well-being.
And so I had been working down in South Dunedin, and so in areas really low decile schools, they'd kind of had that insight or that realisation earlier that we need to look after well-being in order to enable learning.
Yeah.
And the Christchurch or the Canterbury earthquakes really brought that home to a big number of people. And that's when I think we saw the acceleration of schools working with mana whenua, schools wanting to collaborate across schools that were previously competitive.
Sparks was born.
Yeah, in that period.
Yeah.
Because of the need.
Yeah, that's right. We were asked to help. Yeah.
And there was and there still is, a really big need. And it's different now, I think, in that, this what we've just talked about with well-being and the pool is just as true of resilience. And, in good times, everyone wants to build well-being. In hard times, people want to build resilience. But they really are just two sides of the same coin. And I think what we're seeing, especially this year, is a realization that if you just say to people, be resilient, come on, do it, that it is...
It's like, calm down.
Yeah. Or take a concrete pill. It's the kind of the 2022 acceptable version of harden up, take a concrete pill.
Yeah.
Top
you
shelf.
need to be resilient in this.
People saying be resilient. It is a bit like calm down or be serene.
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that. But
I wish it was that easy.
Yeah, it would be great, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, I'd be flourishing 100%.
Oh yeah, I would be so serene.
Yeah.
And what we're seeing now, I think, all over the world, actually, not just New Zealand, is that most of us have reached the limit of what we can do in various different ways. We've hit the wall, and when we hit the wall, the thing that picks us up and keeps us going typically is the people around us. Our friends, our whānau, our colleagues. And these, if we're in a place where people pick you up, lift you up and keep you going, we've got collective resilience.
Yeah.
And we're back to that sense of whole school well-being.
I know, it's so true, isn't it? Yeah, that's really interesting, isn't it? Because when we talk about whole school well-being, now I'm getting more of a sense of, everyone's in this together.
Yeah.
But then everyone's got someone inside of that they know can look out for them and they can go to.
And so in an education perspective, you won't be surprised to know that the schools that have navigated the pandemic better are the ones that had built belonging and inclusion, that there was a sense of psychological safety, that heading into the pandemic, they already knew that people there had each other's backs, they would look out for each other. It was safe to say, if you I'm struggling, I need help. Yeah. So the schools that have built that beforehand it was easier to navigate the challenge of COVID. I'm really excited by a lot of the work that's happening in our schools, because I think at the core of this work is self-awareness, knowing who you are, knowing what's right with you, and being able to self-regulate, whether that's to get happy, to calm down, to calm your own anger, to self-soothe, to, whatever. And so I'm really excited that we have things like, we live in a country where, pause, breathe, smile is available in schools, and children are learning mindfulness practice, which is about self-awareness and self-regulation. Yeah. And we've got sparklers coming in, making well-being and conversations about well-being an everyday thing in schools.
Yes, I hadn't thought about it like that.
You think about the context.
Yeah. It's about normalising being able to talk about what's going on for us on the inside too.
And it's really important. It's so hard for, some sectors of our population. And if we can make it easier for all of the kids coming through schools, why would we not want to do that?
They do it when they're 2. Why can't they do it when they're 52?
Yeah,
62?
Completely. Yeah. And if we can have a school environment where harden up, take a concrete pill isn't the order of the day, but wow, you look really upset, tell me what's going on, then we're going to be, we are so much stronger. We're so much more able to look after ourselves. We're so much more able to be in meaningful, satisfying, supportive relationships.
Because what's amazing, isn't it? When you're feeling something and somebody names that for you. And there's that overwhelming sense that
I'm seen,
you get me, I'm not alone in this. Yeah. And it helps it to dissipate. And I'm really surprised that people sometimes have never had that experience.
Yeah. And kind of this leads us into thinking about perfectionism, which is, I've been saying, when we reached the COVID pandemic, we were already full flight in an epidemic of perfectionism, where it's not okay to, where it's harsh self-criticism, harsh judgment, unrealistic standards. Yeah. And for some people, they've never heard someone say, name an emotion or acknowledge how they're feeling. But also there's an awful lot of us who've never given themselves any compassion. But isn't that interesting? Like, I feel it's much safer for me if I can say, well, actually, I'm feeling really scared now and I don't know if I can get this right. Yeah. I've put it on the table. Yeah. And I think for me, that's me lowering expectations to make myself feel safer. But for some people, that's never been an option.
No. It's interesting what you say about pre-COVID and then COVID coming in and sort of dismantling to some, to some degree, that perfectionism, because I really wanted that to stay around. I got so excited when we were in Zooms and there'd be cats and dogs and children.
Children on laps.
That's right, and partners in the background in their robes. And I really wanted, because then we saw a whole person in their environment, didn't we? Yeah. Rather than the person that shows up at work, fully dressed, looking like they've got it together, and not able to tell us, actually, I've had a really terrible day and a horrible night and I had no sleep. Yeah. Rather than see my terrible day and my child screaming, and you just bear with me, I'll put myself on mute for a bit.
Yeah, I just have to deal with this over here.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And interestingly, we know that in some of the work around, collective resilience or psychological safety, whatever you want to call it, one of the things that really helps is where your team is known to each other personally. They know each other as people. It's much easier to ask someone you know as a person for help or to extend an offer of help. or to trust each other. All of that becomes so much easier when we're actually known. But one of the challenges of COVID was, in some ways, it revealed us to each other. But in another way, you loved us being revealed to each other.
I did, yeah, because I was like, oh, wow, that's what she does before she comes to work. And I see her perfect.
Absolutely, yeah. But the other side was, in an effort to be efficient, and because we were all on Zoom and sick of Zoom, so many groups went like, no, we don't have time for the niceties. No more small chit chat. Let's cut to the chase. What's this meeting about? And so many of us lost the opportunity to have that lovely chat we have before and after a meeting, where we say, how are you? How are the kids? How's your mum? You know, all of those conversations.
Yeah, that's right.